Surf Splendor.
It'd be a good time to segue into the cream puff.
The cream puff, yes.
So what was the concept? Tell me the whole origin story of the cream puff.
The previous truck, the one I'm working on right now that has 408 whatever thousand miles on it, that was the Nun, short for the Flying Nun.
I was gonna say, wasn't there?
Yeah, that was the Nun.
Okay.
We had a shell, like just a regular cab height camper shell, ARE camper shell on there. It wasn't a camper; it was just a shell
on the back of the Toyota Tacoma.
Yeah, yeah. And the side windows folded out, and it was nice. You could get in there. I made a bed and storage under the bed, but when you were on the bed, there was it was 18 inches of room. It's like a coffin back there, but you could get out of the wind and down in Mexico, cold and windy down there, and but it leaked. The windows leaked because you know how the shell angles in to angle the kind of the shape of the truck. It's not straight up and down or out. Out would be ugly, but anyway, it angles in. Well, the gaskets were all leaking, and cheap. I didn't want to replace the gaskets and all that, so I used some sealer on there, and I put little rain gutters on it and screwed them on there and tried to keep the water from leaking in when we're in there sleeping at night. And finally I just got frustrated with the whole thing. I wanted a little more height, just a little bit, a couple inches. And so I just cut the whole lid out of the top of the shell, and then I made a new lid that was just a few inches higher, and then I extended it. I made it out of marine plywood, 3/8 marine plywood, and I extended the lid out over, and I made eaves. Like houses have eaves. I made eaves so that any rain coming down would then roll off the top of the camper shell and down and miss the windows. And then I decided to extend it off the back a little bit so we had some shade. You could sit on the tailgate out of the rain. And it looked like my wife's good friend, Madonna Chu, Rich Chu's wife, she saw it and goes, "Oh, it's the Flying Nun." And it's been the Nun ever since. And so anyway, my wife and I were camping in the Nun, and we were in between the Bay of LA and a place called Bahia San Francisco. And there's a place called Animas, and we're in the middle of nowhere down there, and it was one of those Sea of Cortez in the wintertime. I think it was in mid-December, and it was the north wind blowing, and it was 50-mile-an-hour wind and freezing cold. Sandblast you if you're outside. And so my wife and I were inside, and it's like 4:30 in the afternoon, and it's freezing cold. And you can't get out of the camper, and there's nothing. We're in the middle of nowhere, and we just started laughing. Like, here we're in jail in this little small camper. We're comfortable, but we want to go do stuff, and we're in jail. And I was like, gosh, if we could just stand up and have a place to cook. Like right now, we're hungry. I can't even get the camp stove out. So we started dreaming. We had recently gotten a newer truck to us, a 2007 Tacoma, and it was kind of a little bit nicer, and it just was a pickup, just open shell, didn't open bed, and but it was her truck. I wanted her to have the nice car, so it's kind of our nice car. And we're laying back there, and I go, I could build a new camper. Now, mind you, she did not like the Nun, and she's like, "Oh no, you're not building a camper for my truck." And I go, "No, listen, just go with me here. If you'll go with me and you'll allow me the time, and that, I can build a really kind of sexy looking camper for your truck. And what would our priorities be?" And she goes, "Well, I want a bed that's made all the time, and it needs to be a queen size bed." What we were sleeping in was like, she didn't like mosquitoes and bugs coming in at night, and I would always have the back open but she didn't like that, and she gets bit and stuff. So we would close the back hatch on the shell, but it was like, I'm 6'1", and it's like 5'11" and a half in there, and it was just like a bummer. My feet, I just want some freedom for the feet, you know? So anyway, that was always a war. Not a war, but I didn't like it that much. She knew it. And so she's like, if we could have a queen size bed so you could stretch out, and it was always made, ready to go, that'd be great. And when it would be neat to have a neat place to sit inside that you could read a book, relax. And it would be also neat to be able to have a place where you can cook out of the wind and like where it's warm, and you can stand up while you're doing it. Those were our 3 priorities. And so I said, okay, I'll build a really cool camper for it if you say do it. But if you do it, you have to commit to like being with me on this. And so she did. And that was down in the middle of Mexico. And in December, so April 15th of that next year is when I started. And
how much of it did you map out and engineer on paper?
I drew pictures of what I thought the outside should look like and gauged my wife's reaction to the pictures.
So just exterior aesthetics.
Yeah, I just kept kind of massaging the pictures
Okay.
until I sensed that she was like kind of okay with that. The first few of them had some little bit of a nun flavor, and she was having none of that. So,
By the way, I like that her whole like missive or your sales pitch to her is, I'm going to make a sexy camper.
yeah, right.
She was just not into the sex appeal of the nun.
Yeah, and well, campers are kind of utilitarian for the most part. They're kind of square. They don't really match the shape of the vehicle and stuff. And I was like, no, you know what? I think they should kind of be a little bit. There's a functional aspect to that too, and it'll be aerodynamic, and just kind of soften it a little bit and not have it look like. She didn't want a plywood box on the back, and she was afraid maybe that's what I might do, And so I said, no, I'll make it, and they need to be lightweight. Tacomas are weak. They're kind of weak trucks. And,
Okay.
They're not really a real truck. They're
Lightweight.
Kind of lightweight. So, but they're good for driving on the sand, and they're light, and so anyway.
The question though about how much of it did you map out? I'm curious about like how much of the design was plotted out in advance versus made as you go.
I had a dream in my head of what I wanted. And the best way for me to make those dreams reality is just to do them.
Start working.
Yeah, start working.
Okay.
So I started with going down to Frost Hardwoods, and I bought a piece of spruce, 20-some foot long piece of spruce. And they used to make airplanes with spruce wood. It's lightweight and really strong. And so I decided I'm going to kind of start with a few bones for the camper. So it's light, and I kind of established some parameters of where it was going to be on the truck. I had gotten a hold of US Blanks, and I talked with Jeff up there, and I said, Jeff, when you guys get done with your they would hot wire cut. They do hot wire cut surfboard blanks out of these big like rectangular blocks of EPS foam. And when they get to the bottom, you can think of like kind of a squashed skateboard half pipe.
Yeah.
It's got some curve, nose and tail curve, but the bottom's flat. It was started out as a rectangle. So when they get to the bottom of that, you get down below 3 inches and you can't make another blank out of that. So then what do you do with that? And he said, well, then we just send it back to the recycler. I go, what if you just hot wire cut off those ski jumps on each end? And you just gave me some, or not give me, but I'll buy those slabs from the bottom of it from you. So I'll just have these sheets of foam. And so he goes, oh yeah, great. So he saved those for me, and then he gave me a great deal on them. And I got these EPS slabs sheets, 1 7/8 inch thick. And so that's what I laminated. I just put one layer of flax cloth and epoxy on each side of it. And then I hot coated and sanded. The outside's left, the other inside raw. So it kind of has this kind of cool earthy look to it. And basically made most of the camper all out of EPS foam. So it was light. The camper, when I was done with it, the shell, it's all hard shell. There's no tent canvas kind of style pop-up thing. It actually pops up, tilts up, hinged at the front, tilts up in the back, And so it's got a cap that slides over the top, over the camper. That cap and the walls and all of it was about 500 pounds when I laminated and painted and everything. So then I made it light so I could add heavy stuff to it and take creature comforts. So it probably weighs 1,100, maybe 1,200 pounds when it's loaded now with everything. But yeah, it was.
So the shell itself is spruce frame, EPS foam, flax cloth, and
surfboard cloth. Colin Australia makes it, weaves it. Right. Looks like instead of fiberglass, it's flax. 3.75 ounce.
And then what's it finished with? Epoxy resin?
Yeah, I laminated the whole thing with epoxy, hot coated it, did it in my driveway, in the sun, the shade. It was hectic. There's bugs in it. There's leaves in it. And then I painted it because epoxy is it's not very UV resistant.
Gotcha.
So I painted it with Pettit, easy epoxy paint, boat paint.
Okay.
Several layers of that. It's white.
Yep.
And I figured boat paint's good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's essentially the same construction as a surfboard.
It is the same construction as a surfboard. Yeah.
Except for the boat paint at the end.
Yep.
Incredible.
100%. Yeah. That's surfboard materials. That's what I know.
Exactly. Yeah. And then tell me about the build out inside.
The build out inside, there's a guy down south that does hot rod upholstery, a surfer. I've known him through Instagram. I got some leather, and he sewed me up some really cool couch cushions for it. So I made a couch. It's a 2-seater in there. Nice place to sit and read a book, eat a dinner. It's comfortable. And then under that storage, behind the seats, some storage. And then I have a surfboard countertop. I started with a foam one and glassed it, but I did a little remodel in the kitchen. I haven't changed a whole lot in the camper, but the kitchen did get a remodel about a year ago, and I made a balsa wood countertop and then glassed that. And so it's basically old school balsa wood surfboard material, lightweight countertop with a sink in there. I have a sink and a 2-burner stove. I've got a fridge freezer in there. I've got, freezers are critical in Baja. They're very, very good to have popsicles with you. Popsicles will get you out of all kinds of trouble with cops and military. Not so much the military guys, because they just love the popsicles, so they're stoked. But I've gotten out of some trouble down there with popsicles. They've never failed me, in fact. So
that was not in the Baja Kit Essentials that I asked you about earlier.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Popsicles.
Right next to the ratchet straps.
Popsicles are key. I have a couple solar panels on it, and those run through a solar controller, Victron, I think it is. They make boat stuff, sailboats. So that runs through a solar controller, and then I've got a 100 amp hour lithium battery in there, and that takes care of.
Do I need to move my car?
No, you're fine today. Yeah, you're fine. Sorry.
Okay, cool.
Street sweeper coming.
Yep.
I gotta make sure David's car doesn't get a ticket.
Yeah, all good.
Okay. So the battery, then the solar is in everything's, all the power for the camper is independent from the drivetrain, the truck, motor, and all that. So it's all self-sufficient, and that powers my fridge, freezer, lighting. We can charge phones and things like that in the camper. I'm trying to think of something. Oh, we have a fan for ventilation, and it's nice to have a little bit of power like that.
Absolutely. How long would the power last if you didn't run the solar? I mean, does it store power for an extended time?
Yeah, I can run without any. Say if it was just we were in Alaska in the wintertime, we wouldn't be there then. But say you didn't have any sun. I can keep popsicles, and we can have lighting and everything for probably 4 days.
Okay.
Maybe we might be able to push it out to 5 if we were getting, concerned. And then if we ate all the popsicles in that time, we could turn the freezer off, and we could probably stretch it another couple of days. But I've never had an issue with at this point, initially, right when I first did it, had a different system in there, and it was trouble. The battery wasn't any good, but with this battery, yeah, it's great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Did Heather get her queen size bed?
Yes, queen size bed. Yeah, it's over the cab.
Got it.
And it's always made, ready to go. And
it's an interesting thing. I hate to stereotype all females.
Yeah.
But they tend to like a made bed.
Yeah. It's just,
I don't care about a made bed whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't either.
But
I don't mind having sand in the bed either, and Heather does not like sand in the bed.
Right.
So,
yeah. They're better than we are.
They are. I do appreciate having no sand in the bed and it's being made.
Agreed.
It's not as high on the priority list for me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Surf Splendor.